Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. This year at Outtakes, we were lucky enough to release our review of the Fractal Terra when they announced the Fractal Terra. Pretty cool, right? And as usual, when we do reviews of these cases, you guys have lots and lots of questions. What we're gonna do in today's video is answer a lot of those questions. And figure out whether or not this thing is actually a musical instrument.
Hey Bindi, do you think they should subscribe?
I think you should. But before that, here is a word from today's video sponsor. This video is brought to you by MSI and their new mini-itx tri-band Wi-Fi gaming routers. Game and create on the latest 6 GHz band and enjoy interference-free Wi-Fi, capable of delivering up to 6600 megabits. Download, stream, and game like never before. Reduce network latency and enjoy optimized traffic with AI QoS automation. MSI AI QoS works in real time so you can focus on work without worrying about having enough speed. MSI ensures maximum hardware reliability and network stability through the use of a premium heatsink, which works to keep the temperatures down and to keep you online. Equipped with a 1.8 GHz quad-core ARM processor, unleash the full support of Wi-Fi 6 features such as beamforming. Learn more about MSI's latest mini-itx tri-band gaming routers via the links in the video description. A lot of the questions that we received on the Terra were on our Instagram post that we did when the case launched, and I just wanted to address some of the questions because a lot of people on Instagram don't realize we have a YouTube channel and vice versa. So if you ever do watch this and you come from Instagram, the first question is there any indication of what sort of coolers would fit in this? Our review talks about all of that. Every single little thing that will fit in this case in terms of the cooler clearances, because the case has a adjustable spine in the middle where you can change the offset of the entire case. This case only supports air coolers and a 120mm liquid cooler if that's what you wanted to do. I did see some people talking about, oh, you could probably do a 240 in here. You cannot fit a 240mm liquid cooler in here whatsoever. Another thing people were talking about is, oh, I'm gonna have limitations for the type of CPU and GPU combo that you can have in this thing. If you check out our review, we used a 7800X3D and a 4090. That is probably the most potent combination of components out there for gaming and content creation. And while we're talking about the question of whether or not this can fit a 4090, in our original review, we used a 4090 Founders Edition in here, and we did show that some other cards would not fit because they were physically longer than the Terra itself. A lot of people just use Instagram. We don't post any video content on Instagram whatsoever, so they're not aware of our YouTube channel, right? I just wanna clear that up. And when we do reviews of cases, I always recommend that people watch the entire video because most of the time I will address almost every single thing that is compatible with the case. Now, one thing that I did see people were like, oh, you glossed over the fact that there are spaces for the power supply if you're using flow-through cards. As mentioned in that video, this case has been here since December last year. That wasn't even in the box with this version of the case. There's something that I didn't mention. It's because it didn't exist at the time. You also have to remember when we do case videos, a lot of the time we receive these things months before they're announced, and things change over time, right? And that's kind of what happens when you do what we do. You get access to a lot of these products early, and not everything is final, but they're close enough for it to be the final version. For the Terra, this is the final version that we received, but those standoff things are probably something they just added a little bit later. That's just how it works, guys. I'm sorry that I can't do everything if I don't have the information provided all the time, but let's move on. People were talking about the panel on the top bulging when we had the 4090 installed. That went away. If you look really closely at the footage, that isn't actually the case. But if you have a 90-degree power connector for your 40 series GPU, you're not going to run into that issue whatsoever. I don't have one, otherwise I would have definitely have used one, but the bulging on the case was not significant enough for it to create an issue. A lot of the questions we received about the Terra was about specific GPUs that will fit in this case, and that one is a difficult one to answer because there are lots of different dimensions for lots of GPUs you guys asked about, but there are some that we could do here. But for reference, it's always good to look up the exact measurements of your GPU and the case. Fractal's really good at giving you every single measurement, so there is a lot less guesswork with Fractal cases. And as I showed, and I'll show it in the clip now, is like something like the 4080 Aero from Gigabyte exceeds the limit of the case. But we did get questions about stuff like the 4070 Founders Edition. I don't have one. NVIDIA didn't send one, but I do have a 3080 Ti Founders, which is similar dimensions, just so we can get a bit of an idea of how this would fit. And actually, this is something I wanted to comment on while we're here. This has an angled connector, and I think NVIDIA should just do this for all of their Founders cards. Just have this angled connector so the cable can come out nice and cleanly. Anyway, if we move the spine of the case to be biased towards a very tall CPU cooler, and by very tall I mean as tall as you can get in the Terra, you'll notice that I've just thrown this in. I haven't mounted it up. This will give you an idea of the size cooler that will probably fit and be very, very efficient. So again, this isn't mounted up with the mounting hardware. This is just to show clearance. I've got the 7800X3D on the board just as a guide. But if we put the panel back on for both sides, just to show you guys, this cooler easily fits and clears when the spine is in 2-slot mode. And one good thing about this case is you can see the clearance. Obviously it's not mounted up, but that'll easily mount up. And if you're using a GPU like, say, the 3080 Ti Founders Edition, that's a roundabout way of answering one of the questions that we got about this specific configuration. Now, what I didn't mention was the name of the cooler, which is kind of stupid on my behalf, I'm sorry. This is the Scythe Big Shuriken 3, and it is quite a popular cooler for small form factor builds. Now there is another Noctua cooler that has almost the same dimensions, and if you use that as a reference, you'll find that that Noctua cooler, I'll put the name of that cooler on the screen right now. I can't remember it from the top of my head, but that's just as a bit of a reference for you guys. I haven't done this before, but there's some comments on the video that I wanted to directly answer, and then they're kind of statements, but it's just hilarious because some of the comments are funny. It's just too limited in the kind of hardware you can fit into this. It'd be hilarious if the case costs over $200 but can only fit low mid-range parts. In the review, we used a 4090 Founders Edition and a 7800X3D. There's nothing mid-range about those parts. Let's have a little bit of fun here, ladies and gents. I've got a couple of the GPUs you guys asked about in the comments and on Instagram to see whether or not it'd fit in this case. And I already know what will and won't fit just based on measurements, but it's fun, right? Let's pop this GPU out. The first one we'll try is the Gigabyte 7900 XT Gaming OC. Now that's a fail straight away, mainly because it's longer than the dimensions of the case. Fail. Next one that you guys asked about is this behemoth, and I think you already know the answer to this, but this is the Gigabyte 4090 Gaming OC, and the card itself is longer than the entire case. So that is also a fail. One GPU I thought was very surprising that you guys asked about was if an A770 would fit. I mean, it goes without saying. A770 is a tiny card. One of the other cards you guys asked about is the Asus 4090 TUF or the 4080 TUF. They're both the same size card. No, this is also longer than the entire case. So what that's telling you is GPU size is limited to what they're saying it is in the specs for the case. I did see a few comments asking whether or not a GPU that would be 1mm too long, if that would fit in here. And I don't have the GPU that they asked about, otherwise I would have tested it here, but I'm gonna say no, because the tolerances on this are very, very tight. So as usual with these small form factor cases, they're small form factor for a reason. As mentioned, this does fit a 120mm liquid cooler, but it's not the intended use for this case, because if you did do that, then you're reducing the maximum size of the GPU to be just too small for any real use case. The thing is, the Terra is designed for air cooling. There's a lot of high performance CPUs out there that can be air cooled, right? Not everything needs to be the top end, and I get the argument that I've seen from people about, you know, you're spending $180 or whatever it is on this case, and you can't put the highest end components. That's not the point of a case like this. This case is designed to be functional and a showpiece. This is a case for grown-ups, essentially, right? Not every case needs to fit everything. That's the point of having different cases, because there's different strokes for different folks. A lot of people are into the aesthetic of the Terra. Personally, I love how this thing looks. This case is so well executed, and when we reviewed it, I said the same thing. The case is really good, but guys, you need to be realistic with your expectations of any piece of computer hardware. Not everything is going to fit. I feel like the Terra could be your next case. It is great. They did a good job with it. Actually, here's one that I wanted to answer, Claire. This one was a funny one. Yeah. I saw this when the video went live. Yeah. We got questions as to why we did a premiere. Oh. I'm going to say it. I got a lot of love for Steve from Gamers Nexus, but they didn't know that they weren't allowed to release their video early, so they technically broke the embargo. But that's cool. Like, it happens at Computex because everyone's running around like madness and everything just happens, and sometimes communication breaks down between people. But that's why we premiered it for a minute before the embargo time, because the countdown's like 2 minutes and it was 1 minute after embargo by the time that it launched. But yeah, that's just to address that final thing, because people didn't understand that our video was a full review of the case. It wasn't a piece of content that you'd make at Computex, if that makes sense, because we've had the case for such a long time. And Gamers Nexus wasn't even aware of the existence of this case before Computex, whereas we'd already reviewed it. So, you know, that just happens with some different media outlets. Sometimes we get stuff before other people and vice versa and whatnot. Kind of like how we don't have an ROG Ally yet, right? But that's just down to a very, very incompetent PR company here in Australia. But you know, that's just how it goes. All right, that's gonna just about do it. I hope I answered some of your questions. If I didn't, I'm very, very sorry. But those are things that really stood out to me from the comment section. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek, and we've got a lot of spicy cases from Computex already starting to rock up. So we've got some fun happening very, very soon. Make sure you subscribe because you don't want to miss out, because we review almost every case that comes out that we find interesting, right? So get yourself subscribed. I think we've said that too many times in this video, but whatever.
Someone's gonna get upset.
Someone's gonna get upset. But how else do you think we get subscribers? Huh? Huh? How do you think it works? Huh? Jeez. You get a free video with free information and we're not allowed to ask for something in return? Come on, guys. Thanks for watching. Jesus. It's free. The content's free. You don't pay to watch this stuff unless you got YouTube Premium or whatever it is. But it's free. It's free information. Free. Crazy. Pumping iron. It's not. I don't know why I thought that was funny. I just grabbed it. I'm like, pumping iron, watching that Arnie documentary on Netflix. Iron pumping, I'm Mr. Olympia. People get offended by that, hey? Everyone gets offended by everything.